as we go through difficult situations, the presence of the Spirit is with us, helping us, supporting us, guiding us through it. Growing up, my thought process was Spirit, God, life is out there somewhere, is not like present with me, but
Yeah.
out there more distant. Rather, the gift of spirituality that those 3 years taught me was
The threads of enlightenment, as usual, guys. I love to welcome our guests with this, and that is to thank them and honor them for their time. Time, what a precious gift that has been given to every one of us 24 hours a day. What we do with that 24 hours will speak volumes. And so I always invite people to become familiar with time and how precious it is and how beautiful, when used correctly, will change your life. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful created Laura, gave her some stuff that is deposited in her, and we want access to that. We want access to her wisdom, her insight, her knowledge, all of those precious things that are residing within her being. And we are honored to have her here, to have access to it. Laura, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
thank you. Thank you for creating this platform.
It's an honor. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. I truly am. Because in your language of explaining what you do, you mentioned a couple of my favorite words, grit and gratitude. And I love those two things. Some people call grit your resilience and so forth, but I love those, gratitude and the power of it. Well, and so I cannot wait to engage in our conversation with you. This question I always pose to everyone. And I tell people we are here for a couple of journeys, the independent one that we learn about ourselves, and then the interdependent one where we serve others. How do you serve mankind?
So I serve through the most difficult experience that I've been through in my life. I learned the gift of grit and gratitude through that traumatic experience. So is my passion and my deep desire to serve by sharing every day the gifts of the grit and gratitude. So, and the reason I say that is that I don't just receive the grit and gratitude for myself and say, okay, that's good for me. Rather, it's my passion to say, I received it. Now let me go and share with it. Let me go and serve the gift of grit and gratitude.
I think that's the assignment. I always tell people we didn't come here to work a job. We came here to find out what our assignment is and execute it to the best of our ability while we're here on this planet. One of the spaces that we visit as we have landed in this place called Earth is that first location that we hang out for a few years, Laura, and that is called the family. What was your family unit like?
So my family, I grew up in the Southeast in South Carolina. So my mom was a teacher. My dad was in real estate. I have one older brother. So it was very what you would consider just a typical, normal, deep Southern family life. We went to church on Sundays. We went to church on Wednesdays. It was just part of our so everything was normal until my diagnosis.
Yes, let's talk about that because everything is normal. I love that because our normal life as Christians too, because I grew up in a Christian church. Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday, we had youth group and all the different things.
Yes.
So we spend most of our time there. So talk to us about your introduction, if you will, to the news that you received and how that news changed this young individual life.
Yeah, so there were two distinct moments regarding the diagnosis. So the one was I'd gone to a pediatric ophthalmologist and they had discovered that something was going on with my eyes that couldn't be corrected. So I needed to go to a specialist. So after many doctor's appointments of finding the correct person, I ended up with a doctor at Emory in Atlanta who was a pediatric retina specialist.
Mhm.
And what I vividly remember is sitting in the office and she just looked at my parents and just said, the cells of her retina are dying. We don't know at what rate they will deteriorate. We don't know the time, but we know they're deteriorating. And we don't have an exact diagnosis. It doesn't completely fall into one neat category. So I vividly remember that experience because as a 9-year-old, I heard the doctor say that, but in my 9-year-old brain, I couldn't emotionally process what that meant for my future. Obviously, my parents completely could and realized, oh my gosh, at some point, she could be 12, she could be 30, she could be 50. We know this is going to happen. We just don't know when. So for my parents, that was a life changing moment. For me, it wasn't because, again, in my mind, it was like, well, I can see now. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to forever be able to see. So the 9-year-old couldn't grasp the reality. Fast forward to the end of middle school. So at the end of like eighth grade, seventh or eighth grade, that's when it became real for me. So in geography class, the teacher asked us, start copying down the notes on the board. So I pulled out my pen, pulled out my notebook like I have done my entire life, and looked up at the board, and all I saw were black, like shadowy blobs. It wasn't clear, defined letters. So I looked back down in my notebook. I looked up at the board again, and that's still all I saw were just the blobs. So I leaned over to my neighbor and I just said, how are you copying down the notes on the board? There's nothing to write down. Her answer was a life changing moment for me and when all became real. Her response was, the print is normal. What are you talking about? We can copy down the notes like always. That's when I realized I had lost a significant amount of sight. And that diagnosis as a 9-year-old was now becoming real and real in a significant way.
Laura, when it became real in a significant way, as you stated, how did you react? Because here is this young girl, such a young individual, playing with her friends and doing all the things that quote unquote a normal child would do.
Right.
And in this class, you are now at a stage where it's getting dark,
Yes.
if you will. How did you respond to that? Because you said it became real. What was that like when it became real?
So my initial response was denial. It's not happening. It is happening, but it's not going to last that long. I will just wake up soon and magically I'll have 20/20 sight. Or, I'm not blind. I'm just visually impaired. I just have some low vision. So
Yeah.
it was that complete denial of the reality. Because as you said, I wanted to be that typical teenage girl of doing all the dancing, sports, riding bikes, all the stuff I have been doing my whole life. So once the denial wore off, my my mindset was I can't, I can't, I can't. My whole thought process was this is too hard. I don't have the strength to do this.
What changed from, again, a young child? The overwhelming reality of her world just absolutely changed. It's going to change. And even an adult, Laura, would
Yes.
be initially, I can't, I can't, I can't. And here's a
Right.
child that is dealing with this. In that state, as you are
Yes.
mantra of I can't, what made you begin? What was the incident that changed that mantra? What was the incident that began to change that mantra?
So there was not one exact moment that changed that mantra. It was a series of moments, and that is the gift of community. So as I was saying, I can't, I can't, I can't, I don't have the strength to do this, the support around me was teaching me not through their words, but through their actions.
Mm-hmm.
You can day by day by day. So, a very practical example of what I mean by this is I was saying, I can't get up and go to school today. I can't go to high school today. I can't make it through English class and all the different academic classes. I can't do it. My parents were saying, just take it hour by hour. We don't have to figure the whole future out today. All we have to do is the next hour. All we have to worry about is getting up and getting ready for school and getting to school on time. Once that goal is accomplished, we'll figure out the rest of the day. it was my parents, their standard for me did not change, even though they now had a daughter who didn't have sight. They
Yeah.
just made the accommodations. They figured out and researched the accommodations needed while still holding me to the same standards. At the same time, my older brother, he was still treating me as that, annoying little sister that drives him crazy all the time. So he still treated me normal. He didn't treat me as this perfect little sister all of a sudden.
Yeah.
He didn't pity me, didn't coddle me. I was still annoying.
Yeah.
In the moment, I was like, y'all are mean. Why don't you pity me? But what they were the gift and what they were teaching me and what we can laugh about now, they were showing me through their actions, Laura, you're still you. You
Yeah.
still have meaning and purpose and value. Yes, this is overwhelming. Yes, this is terrifying. Yes, no one would choose it. And we'll figure it out day by day by day. So it was the parents, the brother, my teachers at school. So it was the gift of community that slowly changed that can't into I can.
That's a beautiful story, Laura. Do you remember that day when you made that first declaration as to when you believed what what they were saying all along? And when this young girl believed that one day and said, okay, I think I can, and began to move. Can
Yes.
you recollect that?
Yes, very clearly. So after I graduated from high school, in between the few months between high school and college, I went to San Francisco to get a guide dog to the blind to get my first guide dog.
Mhm.
And so you had to be on campus at their facility for a month to train with the dog. The dog's already fully trained, but it's just connecting the human with
With the
the
dog.
dog
Yeah.
with that for that month. So I was there for a few days before we actually received the dog. So it was a Wednesday afternoon right after lunch, and it was a class of about 20 of us. And they instructed all of us to go back to our rooms, and then they would bring each person their individual dog and
Mhm.
introduce us to the dog. I so clearly remember it was sitting on my bed all alone, 3,000 miles away from home in those quiet moments, waiting for my guide dog to walk in the door, when I just remembered, okay, I've received an incredible amount of support when I was saying I can't and didn't have the strength. I've had all these people around me telling me I can. Laura, it's time to decide you can for yourself. And as this dog is literally getting ready to walk in the door to now be your eyes, you can. And I remember I just remember that moment in my head of just, now I decide I can't. This dog will help me literally physically move forward in a safe way. But also, that's the moment when I emotionally decided I can do this. Again, it's not going to be easy. It's not
Yeah.
that I want to do this, and I can.
Powerful statement. I can. When you did that, because the change is noticeably in your spirit, you feel it inside
Yes. Yes.
where your chest begins to stand out. And then you are going to begin your journey. As you began your journey there, Laura, and you went to college, let me ask you this. What field of study did you pick and why did you pick it?
So I picked psychology, and 100% because of my life experience.
Mhm.
So as I explained that the gift of the community around me, I realized during my college time and even towards the end of high school, healing is not just psychological. I realized because of my own lived experience, it was psychological, it was spiritual, it was healing, it
Yeah.
was mind, body, spirit connection.
Yes.
So I focused in college on psychology so that I could specifically focus on the mind part of healing,
Yeah.
knowing that that wasn't the whole picture. But at that time, I wanted to go deep in psychology to focus on that part of healing.
And as you purposely, I love the purpose within your choice, if you will, and your reasoning behind the choosing of your field. As you began to become purposeful in your studies, what did you begin to learn about you, and those tools did you begin to implement in bringing some healing, if you will, Laura, to your mind? Because as we stated, the psychology first is about your mind. What were some of those tools that you were bringing to assist you in this healing of your mind?
As so much of my life I didn't have control over. Just for example, losing my sight, becoming blind, the diagnosis. I could not control that. What I could control was my mind, my thought process, my patterns. I had control over what I thought and how that made me feel. So, in that process of saying, I can't, I can't, I can't, I didn't feel like I even had control over saying I can't.
Yeah.
The gift of what I learned in those college years is I do have control over my mind, and I can choose how I think and how I respond. So, with that, as you were describing just our physical experience, that began a process of becoming comfortable and confident in my new reality.
Love
And so
your
that was a
choices of words, Laura. I try to tell people that children react. They'll, something, they react, and a natural child does. When something happens to them in a situation, they react, and usually they'll scream, yell, shout, and whatever. And we will use the terminology as childish behavior. And adults act like childish behavior as well when they deal with certain things. But you said respond. And I tell people when you want to learn to respond, you're coming from a different place. You respond within a situation, you're pulling from places like knowledge, insight. You're coming from a different source, if you will. And so I really want you guys to listen to what Laura talked about. Learn to respond in your situation and not react. You get angry and you get emotional and all this type of stuff when you're reacting. But when you're responding, there is usually a degree of control, a degree of mastery, if you will, of one's emotion in a sense where it's not flying all over the place. Learn that skill set, guys. It's really important. It'll change your life. So, Laura, as you graduated and you moved through life and you talk to us about your first quote unquote job that they always tell us, because the program is, we are going to go to school, we're born, we go to school, we get out, we get the job, then we get the marriage with the kids, the dog, and all this type of stuff. And then you die, I mean, you forget all the living in between there.
yes.
What was your first encounter with employment, if you will, and what was that area that you ended up?
So, as I referred to the mind, body, spirit connection and focusing on psychology in college, I wanted to continue that holistic approach of understanding how we heal, how we move forward. So, once I graduated from college, I got my Masters of Divinity.
Mhm.
And in that 3-year master's program, I specialized in chaplaincy because, again, just like college, I was passionate about supporting others in a hospital environment as they were going through major physical illness, whatever that might be, experiencing surgery or cancer or rare diagnosis, whatever that might be, being that presence that holds the space of you matter.
Yeah.
You are enough. You are valuable. Exactly what you were saying about responding, not reacting. So holding the space for them to be able to respond, not be overwhelmed by the reaction of their reality.
Yeah. Here, I love your choices, or how purposeful you are in your approach to life, and how you are looking at an individual, the individual himself and yourself, recognizing that you have the spirit part of you. You have the soul, which is your mind and all those different aspects. And then you have your body and so forth. When you started with the mind and you went into the divinity aspect, dealing with the spiritual aspect of us, learning a very important piece. We are enough. When you were there in the divinity course, what were some of those things and knowledge and insight information that brought you healing in that area?
So, learning the gift that as we go through difficult situations, the presence of the Spirit is with us, God helping us, supporting us, guiding us through it. Rather than growing up, my thought process was Spirit, God, life is out there somewhere, is not like present with me, but
Yeah.
out there more distant. Rather, the gift of spirituality that those 3 years taught me was Spirit is suffering with me now,
Yeah.
grieving with me while also moving forward with me.
Yeah.
So it was the balance of realizing the Spirit grieving with me, supporting me in that grieving, while also saying, you are still a beloved creation with meaning and purpose. So it was the both at the same time.
Yeah, the Bible tells us that God is close to the brokenhearted. So those of you that are in pain, you're not alone. And when you're able to call on God, he says, call on me and I'll answer. So call. You just have to be willing to do that. So Laura, talk to me as you are now living this purposeful life and you are how were you ushered in, if you will, Laura? And there are always a series of things that happens to start to usher us into our assignment that you're fulfilling today. How did that begin to manifest, if you will, where you were ushered into becoming a servant? You had that desire, but as you're gaining all of the knowledge, the insights, and the tools necessary to assist you in your servanthood, how did that journey take place? And when was that first time that you, quote unquote, say you're officially out there, as a servant? How did that begin to synchronize for you to become who you are today?
So, as I went through the process of college and grad school, again, having the life experience of the mind, body, spirit connection, that was incredibly powerful for me to heal and move forward. Also, at the same time, as I'm going through my own healing process, both strangers, people that I didn't know, and also people that I knew were just coming to me and trusting me with their deep fears, their deep concerns, their deep worries, and trusting my experience. Over time, by the end of graduate school, that's when, and I was doing chaplaincy, that's when I realized, okay, this healing journey is not, again, just the reason for the grit and gratitude is
Yeah.
not just for me. It's for me to receive as an individual and then also to serve others through that life experience. So it was a balance of experiencing my own healing and also having others come to me and just share their fears and share their situations. That those two experiences combined, that gave me the passion to create and talk about and speak about and write about the grit and the gratitude.
Well, let's talk about that, Laura, about those two words, the grit and the gratitude, because you have insights about both. And we want to excavate that from you. Talk to us about that grit part of your journey. How did you grab onto that word and what did it look like in your life as far as, your journey? You're looking at it and remember your mantra that I can't. We know where your roots are and you're now looking at grit. Talk to us about that journey right there from I can't to the grit part of that revelation that you have.
The grit part again started from the gift of community. So as I've realized that as I was saying I can't and was overwhelmed and fearful for the present and the future, it was the grit of my parents telling me we will take it day by day by day. It was the grit of my brother just treating me like his normal little sister. So it wasn't just push through, grin and bear it.
Yeah.
It was choosing to have those small goals moment by moment. Like I was sharing the goal of just getting up and getting ready and getting to school on time. Accomplishing that was an incredible moment and experience of grit. So as I reflected back, I realized it was the grit that slowly moved me forward from the I can't to I
Yeah.
can. Then once that foundation was laid, just as you asked me, there became a point where I had to accept the grit for myself. I had to embody the grit. I had to choose, okay, I've had the grit modeled for me. Now it's time that I accept it and believe it and choose to move forward. And the reason I've had that experience is for me going through the experience when either people would pity me or I would feel sorry for myself. That took me deeper in the depression, deeper in the anxiety. The pity that the victim, that didn't feel healing. That didn't feel empowering in any way. It actually made me feel worse. Also, at the same time, the idea of, oh my gosh, now you're overcoming, you're moving forward, you're so amazing, you're just so inspirational, didn't empower me either because that made me other. That didn't keep me just as a human living out the human experience.
Mhm.
So that's why I specifically chose the word grit and realized the gift in grit was because it would represented to me moving forward day
Yeah.
by day by day.
Talk to me now about that gratitude, please, because when you are visiting the space of depression and anxiety and all of those dark energies, if you will, the thoughts that carry you there that we actually accept the thought, and it takes us into those spaces where we become depressed and anxiety and anxious and all those different things that exist there. We have to introduce one of the most powerful forces known to mankind. That is gratitude. Talk to me, Laura, when being in that space of depression and all those things, and when you began to realize the power in that word, gratitude, and the fruit that it bore in your life as you began to express it. Talk to me about that aspect of your second revelation, if you will.
Again, the gift of community. So, as I was so depressed and anxious and constantly having panic attacks and trying to figure out how to live this new normal without sight in a sighted world, I wasn't feeling grateful. I wasn't waking up saying, "Oh, I'm so grateful for this blindness. This is wonderful. I love this experience. Everyone should have this experience in life." That was not my mindset. What started and activated the gratitude was towards the end of high school, I had a mentor of mine say to me one day, "Laura, I want you to start writing down three either people, situations from your day that you're grateful for.
Mm.
And I don't want you to repeat. So every single day, they have to be very specific from that day." So I just nodded and smiled. And in my head, I was thinking, "You're not a good mentor. This is not good advice to give to someone who is depressed, panic attack, and does not know how they're going to move forward. Like that's just, you don't need to be anyone's mentor and teaching them anything because that's just not, I'm not grateful. That's bad advice." So as a stubborn teenager, I decided, okay, I will be her mentor. We're going to switch roles and I'm going to teach her that is not good advice. So I started to write down, and the day became 3 days, and the 3 days became a week, and the week became several weeks. And what I realized is she was not teaching me be grateful for the blindness, be grateful for the difficulty. She was teaching me and giving me the gift of a life of gratitude, where gratitude is based on being thankful for what helps us navigate through the change, through the trauma, through the uncertainty. So, a practical example where in those high school days, She wasn't saying just be grateful. She was saying be grateful for the teachers that are making the accommodations so you can complete high school. Be
Yeah.
grateful for the parents that are still making you do the chores at home, who are not just letting you use your blindness as an excuse or a reason not to be you. Be grateful for the guide dog that helps you navigate the world. So my whole gratitude journey began just by proving my mentor wrong. And I was actually the one that was completely wrong. And it was life changing. It was a major part of my healing is every day focusing on what helps me navigate through rather than just being positive, happy, walk around telling everyone thank you all day. It
Yeah.
was deeply acknowledging what am I genuinely thankful for?
I hope you guys are really, and Laura, I always invite my audience to transition from listening to hearing because Jesus said, those who have ears, let them hear. And I believe that that spoke to that inner man, the soul of the man that is listening, that individual, that when he gets it, it becomes a reality to the being, if you will. Laura gave such powerful insights as to some of the most powerful tools out there that one can utilize in their journey of self-development to move through, as she says, grit, to move through day by day, hour by hour, until you keep moving. As I tell people, stagnation is an enemy of personal development. One must not be stagnant. You can rest, but you are not supposed to stay there and blend in, because when you look at stagnation in the natural realm, there are a lot of critters when you look at standing water and stuff like that, deadly stuff that are there. So don't become stagnant. Keep moving every day. And she also talked about writing down, journaling, in the sense of picking 3 things. Start with 3. Gratitude, be grateful. Gratitude is one of the most powerful things that you can ever do in your life. It'll change your life. I promise you. And I know that Laura believes this because she talks about this, and she is, I saw her talking about it on a TED program as well. So I invite you guys. We're going to give you all of our links and stuff like that so you can get to her. And I encourage you to get into her space. Be coached, be coachable, get into the books. And you know what I tell you guys about books? Books house wisdom and freedom, because it was a book that set me free. When I was going through all kinds of crazy stuff, I read a couple of books that set me free, the knowledge that was in there. So buy books and hand it out, and so that you guys can move through your pain. Laura, I want to ask you this question. You have a mic. That mic is plugged into all of us on this planet. There's several billions of us that are here. What would you say?
In the midst of change that we all experience in so many different ways and so many different levels, first, choose the grit to acknowledge the difficulty of what you're going through. So, as I mentioned, my first reaction was denial. I was denying and not willing to sit in the pain of the reality. So, I would say, have the grit and choose to sit in the pain, not, as you were saying, to be stagnant, but just to give yourself time to acknowledge this is really, really hard. This is painful. I would rather not. And then once we give ourselves that space, then we have the power to respond, not react. So sitting in the pain, acknowledging the pain gives us the power to then move forward further into the grit and the gratitude.
Guys, I love Laura's life and the decisions that she made and the choices and the purposefulness in her life. And I invite you again, I'm going to provide all of her stuff. I'm going to invite you guys to get to her space, get in and learn. All of you that are listening, get friends and listen to this. Whatever situation you're in, it doesn't matter. You can come out. It does matter in a sense, but you can come out is what I'm trying to say. As painful as it is, as Laura said, sit in it. There's some things there that you want to become familiar with, but don't be stagnant. Don't stay there, because other things will show up: depression, anxiety, all the other things that'll be there. But keep moving. I encourage you guys to get into her space and learn, because I want you guys to come out from what pain you're suffering. And I have a guide that has been through some things, and she will be able to assist you in moving through your pain. Laura, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the gift of this podcast.
Thank you so much for sharing with us your journey, your wisdom. I learned much from you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.